So something that I don't know at this time in my life, and I don't think I really have to decide anytime soon, but, just worth thinking about is, would I ever want to be any kind of spiritual teacher? Well, the obvious first answer is no, not anytime soon, at least. Not anytime soon. I've got a whole lot more development to do before I could ever consider myself any kind of authority that people should be listening to on this kind of a thing. And, not never. Not never. It's something I could potentially be interested in someday. But there are a lot of things that make me nervous about being any kind of a role model to anybody for any reason, let alone being some kind of a spiritual teacher. I really like a book called Be Love Now by Ram Dass. It's a follow-up book, I guess, to his famous Be Here Now. But Be Love Now has quite a bit of emphasis on the whole student guru dynamic of asking how exactly does a student go about finding who is the right guru for them, and how does the student guru relationship kind of take off? I mean, how do you know if your student has arrived, if you are said spiritual guru? And there's kind of just a sense of needing to just trust the way of things. And your teacher presents to you exactly at the time when you are ready for them to arrive. Yeah, the guru student becomes a parent. Like, there's just sort of an innate sense when there's somebody ready to receive the gift of insight that one has received throughout life. But there are many, many reasons why becoming that person even someday long from now kind of freaks me out. One of them is a bit of a self-reflection in the way that the spiritual seeker, the student, seeks out their guru. When somebody seeks a spiritual teacher, oftentimes they are looking for somebody to give them all of their meaning. Not just teach me how to find my own meaning in life. Give me meaning. Or don't just guide me to find my own enlightenment. Give me enlightenment. A desperate spiritual seeker, I think, expects more out of their teacher than most people in any other kind of discipline, like than a student usually seeks from a teacher in academia, or, a player expects from their coach, or something like that. It is a very, very high pedestal kind of mentor to a lot of people. And so the onus would be on me to make sure that I am setting expectations very clear of what the people can get from me. But, I mean, even when you do that, people are going to idolize you in whatever way they choose to. Yeah, and that's a little bit nerve-wracking to me for somebody to put that kind of importance for their own journey, especially because the spiritual journey is such an individual one. Groups of people, or even two people, do not become enlightened. An individual becomes enlightened. In the same way that I was talking about how I don't even necessarily want to share my personal meditation method, because what are the odds that it's right for a bunch of other people? I mean, what are the odds that my insight's going to be helpful to anybody? I guess I don't just worry that it would be not helpful. I worry that it could be actually counteractive to somebody's spiritual growth. But. Here's the thing. If I were ever in the position where somebody was coming to me for some kind of spiritual guidance and I said what I had to say to them and, it sent them in a not great path, I mean, that is part of their path to their genuine realization. If I wasn't their guru, well, I was still just, I was still just a step on the spiritual path that they took. Just like I can think of maybe some gurus that I looked up to. Didn't necessarily, I haven't actually gone and met with very many people, but, just resources I've gone to, or even beyond spiritual, other sort of forms of authority that I've turned to on the internet or through books that weren't the fit for me. Or sometimes I think even gave me not great ideas in my head. Okay, well, I needed that. I think that I needed that because I experienced it, I needed to learn from those not great teachers that I had. So there's a certain amount of depersonalization that I have to do in thinking about the prospect of me being somebody's spiritual teacher someday. Where, hey, even if I do end up being a bad spiritual teacher, a terrible one, I have to depersonalize that because it is just a part of that person's path that they needed to find what was actually the good spiritual teaching for them. But before I ever get too stressed out about this, I just sort of remember, like I said, the teacher and the student find each other at exactly the time that I think that they're ready for each other, spirituality or otherwise. I've been teaching acting for about 9 months as a little side thing that maybe could grow into something bigger someday, but it was something that was just tossed into my lap. It was an opportunity that was just handed to me. I didn't go out seeking and exhausting every resource to become somebody's acting teacher, but I've been a handful of people's acting teacher the last 9 months. Between I'd say around 20, maybe a little bit more than that people. Yeah, and the exact same thing that I'm talking about. I wasn't the right fit for every single person, but I was for some people, and hey, those people that I wasn't the great fit for, they needed to have me as their teacher for a little while to know that my teaching style didn't work for them, and, no harm, no foul, right? Again, there's a deeply personal investment that people put in spirituality, I think, more than acting, and more than most artistic disciplines, But still, that's something to remind myself of. So I don't need to rack my mind thinking about how would I ever handle it if I were looked up to as a spiritual guide, because I think if it does ever happen, it will just happen. It will just fall. That will be where where everything falls into place for that to be the case. Yeah. And, I didn't end up seeking out a personal spiritual teacher, like for me to meet one-on-one with consistently, until I was in a very sort of late seeking stage. When my journey had been going on for about 6 years. I think that was when I was ready to find the person that I found. And so just similarly, I have to put a level of trust in any student that wants to be mine in the future. That they know that they are personally even ready for some kind of spiritual teacher in their life. I do think it would be fulfilling. But it would only be fulfilling in as much as it felt like a genuine place that I was supposed to be in life. And I have lost most, if not all, of the egoic desires to just have the image of being a spiritual person, a high authority spiritual teacher. that makes it all about them, about this little small human that their consciousness happens to embody. So I think that's also a good sign that I'm probably going to handle whatever authority I'm given with a level of integrity, if it does ever happen. But you know what? It may not, and that is just as beautiful of a thought as being a fulfilling spiritual teacher someday. If I have the genuine impetus tomorrow to never pursue any of the career paths that I'm even considering right now and just go join the circus, that will be my genuine impetus, and I will do that with pride. And maybe I will only sometimes quote the Tao Te Ching when I'm juggling my fire and swallowing a sword.